Welcome, everyone, to Born to Be Rich podcast. I am your host, Judy King, and we have a beautiful guest with us today, Juliana Uto. I'm so excited you're here.
Me too. Me too. Thanks so much for inviting me, Judy. This is gonna be fun.
My pleasure. I know we're going to have so much fun. And just to let everyone know a little bit about you, Juliana. So, you've got this incredible background, like 2 decades building and stewarding money and becoming a self-made multi-million dollar empire, or building a self-made multi-million dollar empire through passionately investing in startups and mentoring companies on the brink of disruption, and being a devoted mother of two young children as well, 4 and 7, and really understanding that delicate balance that goes between that professional ambition and the personal commitment to being a mum. And that balance is something that it sounds like you're deeply passionate about and also devoted to,
Yeah.
and through that, delivering the work that you deeply love, giving women access to high quality alternative investments, which I love so much.
Yay.
I love who you are. I love what you're a stand for, and I love what you provide to women. And so, hence why I'm just super excited about this conversation and us being able to get together today and throw some things around and see who we can inspire and what we can activate within the women that are here listening on today's episode.
Yeah, amazing. I'm really excited for this conversation. It's my favorite topic. It's one of my favorite topics. So I'm excited to dive in and yeah, just see where the conversation goes. I think it's just such an important conversation for everyone to have, but certainly for women to have. So yeah, if we can activate, inspire some women who are listening, that's amazing.
It really is. Can you share a little bit about your journey, like to building this multi-million dollar empire, and some of the key moments or decisions that have shaped your path to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll go back a little bit because I think it's quite excuse me, it's quite pertinent. But my parents, I was born in a communist country, Eastern Bloc country, some years ago, and my parents emigrated when I was 10, which was also some years ago. Um, and that was quite a transformative period in my life. Just the decision to like leave everything behind and to come and start fresh and like literally start from scratch, like from nothing, with two young children. I have a sister who is 2 years younger than me, and watching my parents, work hard and persevere and be really good savers and really good stewards of money, and um, not at all being extravagant. Like I didn't have an extravagant childhood. I don't ever remember not having things, but I also don't remember like splurging on things, if that makes sense, right? Like it would be, in the winter, the temperature would be set at a certain, I'm in Canada, so the temperature would be set at a certain point, and if you got cold, you put on another sweater. You didn't like turn the heat up, right? And so I just remember my dad going around turning the lights off if there was no one in the room, and it being like a point of friction. Like, why are the lights on in the bathroom if there's nobody in there? So just being very like hyper conscious, I think, of the value of money and the value of a dollar and what it takes to create it, and how you can, save it and steward it and grow it. So that was very instrumental, I think, for me. And I knew when I just knew, like I grew up pretty quickly after that, and I knew that the reason my parents defected, so to speak, was for my sister and I to be able to have access to education. And so I was very conscientious in school. In high school, I took all the options and all the electives and all the things, and then I've always been a huge proponent of optionality and having choice, and having independence and not being kind of locked into any one path. And I decided to do engineering. So I went into engineering because I figured there'd be lots of avenues for me to work in. I knew there's not that many women in engineering, even at that point. I went into mechanical engineering, again, for the optionality. So my life has for the most part, until I had children, at which point all the optionality went out the window, because like, yeah, you can't give them back, nor do I want to. Like I love my I love my children. But once you kind of like lock yourself into certain things, and it's you're choosing a different life,
Mm.
consciously. And so yeah, went into engineering, and right from, I would say, at a very early age, like I finished, I don't recall when I finished university, but let's say like early 20s. As soon as I started working, I saved, like I saved money just as I saw my parents save money, and I I spent what I needed to spend, but then I hung on to it and I figured out how to invest. And compounding is this marvelous thing. Einstein is credited with saying it's the eighth wonder of the world. And if you start young enough and you put enough away, it doesn't have to be much before it starts to compound, and it starts to really kind of create a critical mass, and then that builds and that builds. And so that's kind of how it happened. But I've always had an interest in investing. And then I would say more recently, I started to venture into more alternative investments instead of just like a stock portfolio. So that would be like investing in startups, investing in women founders, investing in private equity, investing in private businesses. So that's how I came to be here. It's a bit of a longer story to your very short question, pointed question, but I think it's relevant.
Yeah, it is.
Like, just the background of my story. And yeah.
Yeah, because it really, our experiences, where we've come from, and that huge shift and leap of faith that your parents had to take in order to provide something better than what they experienced, right? And all of those pieces of learning, we can either take it one way and stay in that scarcity mindset ourselves of we have to save money and we have to, or and maybe that was a good thing as well, because it was like, I'm going to save, I'm going to actually save, but I'm also not just going to save, I'm actually going to do something with my money to make it grow. And that
Yeah.
mentality, that mindset, a lot of people don't have, because we haven't been taught that, or we haven't opened our eyes to think that way. And as you know, it's such a powerful little piece, and it is just starting with something small, right? Sometimes.
Yeah. I think like the way I think about, kind of the framework for thinking about money is you need to have some mechanism, some vehicle for bringing it into your life. So earning it, manifesting it, whatever language you want to use to create the reality of money coming into your bank account, right?
Yeah.
And then you want to get to a point um, where you can hold on to some of that money that's coming in, and then you want to grow that, right? And so ultimately, I'm of the mindset that I would much rather have my money work harder for me than I work for my money. Like I'm just very and the more you actually start to see it in practice, the more you realize that, oh, that's actually very possible for your, for your money to work hard, for you to be completely supported by your investment portfolio, for like that's a real reality. And um, I would just encourage, like, the reality is there's a very real wealth gap between men and women. There's a very real earnings gap between men and women. There's a real funding gap between female funded startups and male funded startups. So these are realities of, our kind of three-dimensional world that we happen to live in. Um, Ultimately, like, real wealth is not created by earning. You can't earn your way to wealth. You have to invest your way to it, right? And the way to do that is you have to have the discipline to portion of what comes in, whatever you decide that is reasonable for you and sustainable for you. And maybe there's seasonality to it, like maybe you have young children, or maybe you're in between jobs, or maybe whatever, right? To have the flexibility that it doesn't have to be the same amount all the time, but your discipline is that you're holding on to some of that, and then you're investing it so that it can continue to grow longer term. And that's really how generational wealth and legacy wealth is built. It's if your paradigm, your belief is, well, I'll just earn more because it's, money comes to me easily and effortlessly and all of that, that's great. And it's awesome. But at some point, you might want to take your foot off the brake or off the gas. Like, you might want to take a break. You might want to, something might happen. You might need the extra safety security that an investment portfolio provides. So I think it's a really important practice to get into. And there's so many analogies with, like, fitness and finances. Similarly, I mean, yes, would I love to eat the whole cake because it's delicious. And yes, I would, but maybe I'll stop at like 2 servings. Right? It's the same delayed gratification and discipline. I think that comes in if people can kind of understand that framework. And of course, I didn't realize until just recently that I used to be like this like amazing
Yeah.
fitness reality. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So you totally understand the discipline it takes to build a certain physique. It's the same thing. It's the same discipline it takes to build, big wealth.
Yeah, it's like I would go and have coffee with friends while I was dieting and getting ready for competition, and they might be having cake, and I'm like, I'm not having it, right? It's uh
I'm not even having cream in my coffee. Like I'm just having it black, right? Or
yep,
like
that too.
what your goals are, you have to be like very disciplined.
Exactly. And I love that. It's the way that I view my business is the cash generator that
Yeah,
supports me to then portion off some of that into investments, into
yeah,
what's next, into my next horizon or my third horizon, whatever that is down the track, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years. And like you said, I think it's about really building the muscle and starting small. Sometimes we think, oh, I'm not making the money yet. But if we can put $10 away, let's say, into an account
yeah,
that's going into investments and just build the muscle of that. And as more cash comes in, that amount's going to obviously
yeah.
increase.
Yeah, it really is. I think people play these games with themselves, and um I can see how that happens because I've had just I would say more recently experiences where um it comes in easily and goes out easily, right?
Yeah.
Because you're investing in all these investing in self-development and investing in yourself and investing in all the things. This idea of like I'll save more when I have more money or I'll invest when I have more money, I think that's like you think you're going to it's the same fallacy of I'll be more generous or I'll donate more when I have a million. I'll donate 10%. And I think Tony Robbins talks about like if you can't give 10% of a dollar, you won't be able to give 10% of a million,
Yeah.
right? Because it's
Yeah.
just not it's not your paradigm, it's not your habit, it's not your discipline. So I think one of the biggest things is just having the discipline of even if it's $10 a week, you do it, you track it. That's how you build the muscle of financial fitness, so to speak, right? If you again going back to the gym because that's another one of my passions. Like if you can't squat 100 pounds, you can't squat 150. Like you have to build that muscle, and it becomes really important. A lot of the women that I work with are already they might already be millionaires or they're accredited investors or they're really looking to diversify their portfolio and to like really build their wealth pyramid in a much more conscious way and have agency and sovereignty around how they so that they become the steward of their wealth, not their financial advisor, and nothing against financial advisors. Like I'm not one, but I have one. um, but again, when it comes to a lot of opportunities in the alternative investment space, not a lot, some opportunities, might have a minimum of like 250K, or there's a private credit opportunity that we looked at that had a $500,000 minimum, and that's called over a 4-year horizon. But again, like you have to have um, the discipline to um, the muscle to write big checks,
Yeah.
right? The muscle to be able to like let go of big amounts of money, knowing that you're investing it, trusting and having faith that it'll come back multiplied. And again, if you can't cut $1,000 check for an investment, it'll be hard to do $100,000 check for an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's building that um, capacity in your nervous system to be able to make those moves. So you
Yeah.
got to start, right?
Big time. Absolutely. So you speak about being a steward of money. Can you talk a little bit more into that, how that feels for you, what that means? I think maybe it's a new concept for some people.
Yeah. One of the big things that I think is really important for women, well, for everyone, but certainly for women. And the reason I say for women specifically is we tend to, we're not taught about money or investing. And so it's this kind of opaque, even for someone who is, highly educated, let's say you have a university degree or you're a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, right? It doesn't even matter. But we're not taught it. And so it becomes like what you don't know, you don't understand. It becomes there's a certain like mystique about it, right? And so our tendency is to have our partner manage our capital or a financial advisor manage our capital. And often what happens, and this was my experience in the beginning when I started, was, I would just save up the money and then I would wire it or transfer it or whatever to my advisor, my broker, and then he would invest it. And then we'd have, biannual reviews. And that's all good and great when you're building. You don't even need that necessarily. There's lots of kind of lower priced, index products that you can invest in where you're not paying an advisory fee. But at some point, you are going to, if you are holding onto the money and saving it and investing it, that's going to grow, and it's going to grow beyond $1 million, beyond 2, beyond 3, like it's going to grow. And so being a good steward of that capital means to me that you are, what's coming in, where it's going, how it's invested, what it's returning, you understand the risk profile of those investments. You have some certainty around what the timing of those cash flows are going to be in the future. You have an estate plan. You know how to have those conversations with your spouse or your children or your financial advisor if you had one, or your accountant. Like, you are the one who has her arms wrapped around that bucket of investments, those assets, and you're stewarding them. And you're the one who's deciding, do I want to invest in impact funds? Is that an area of passion of mine? Do I want to invest in startups? Like, what kind of startups? Is it fintech? Is it femtech? Is it investing in education? Like, where is your heart for where you want to see change made through your capital? And I'm not Oprah. So it's not, when I invest in startups and when I invest in women, I'm certainly looking for a return on my capital. I'm looking for that capital to be multiplied. So it's not like, I don't look at it as I fund female founders as a matter of, as a donation. No, it's an investment and I expect a return on that. And so, but I know how to diligence it. I know what to look for. I know what questions to ask. I have a certain thesis around which I'm investing. So it's not like I don't do biotech because I don't have the mental bandwidth to now learn biotech investing, right? It's got a very long time horizon, highly risky, all the things. So that's what I mean by being a steward, right? Like, money in the hands of, like we've heard this before, money in the hands of women is good for the world. And I truly, truly believe that. I think we do good things with money. And it doesn't have to be save the world type of good things. It can be, you're able to hire a nanny, you're able to pay them well, you're able to, allocate extra into your children's education or their development or travel or in your community or the food bank. Like, there's so many ways that money is supportive.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely. And it is so important to build this relationship with money, right? Where we are the steward of it. And I think so many women have handed over their power with this area of their lives. And, or even if they're in business, maybe they are handling it, but they just also, okay, over to the accountant, because this was me. It was like, you do that. That's what you're good at. I'll just check in with you once a month and get the rundown, but not really be stewarding it, like it's like I was taking responsibility, but to actually really be fully understanding of what is coming in this week, what is going out this week, and that having that forecasting and knowing just in terms of my company, but then also you've got the investment side of things too. It's such a different energy, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very, very different. And I do think that in the online space we see, I mean, maybe it's my feed, but I tend to see a lot of stories of women making just incredible amounts of money, like mind-boggling, right?
Mm.
But like nobody talks about profit margin. Nobody talks about
Yeah.
revenue is nice, but it's a bit of a vanity metric, right?
Yeah.
It's great, but what did you actually hold on to and how did you multiply that? And if I, as I think most people do, look at even having like 100K cash months, month over month over month over month, I mean, that invested in some of the opportunities that we look at is like multiple millions of dollar, like tens of millions of dollars 5 years out. So then the question becomes, is it 100K a month or is your take home like 25K, which also is incredible and mind-boggling when you compare
Yeah.
it to a typical salary. But the question becomes like, how are you multiplying that? Like, what is the mechanism that you're like flowing your money through to multiply that to create wealth?
Yeah. And that generational legacy wealth. And that's the thing, right? It's how do I get my money working for me? The money that I have coming in today, have that invested. So in 7 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, it's actually still paying me.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like that's the question. And I think depending on what stage of your investment journey you're on and the stage of your business and all the things, you'd be smart to look at different asset classes, and everyone's, it is a function of your time horizon and your risk tolerance and your time available and all the things. But I think there's multiple pathways to build wealth. I don't think there's some kind of ideas out there of all the millionaires made their money in real estate. Well, that's not true, right? It's not. There's many pathways to building wealth, and there isn't a one size fits all. And so it's on us to, if you're a woman with money, it's on you to understand what is your preferred method of investing, right? And maybe you try different things, and that's how you find out what you like and what you don't like. But to you have to be the one with the vision for what you're going to do with your money, and you have to be the one with the understanding of what suits you and what doesn't. I think it's very easy to be convinced that something is a good idea if you don't know what you're doing, right? and
Yeah.
and also, there's also lots of horror stories of people investing in things and losing their money. So um yeah, I think it was Warren Buffett who said, the rule number one of investing is, don't lose money. And rule
Yeah.
number two is don't forget rule number one type of thing, right? But you will. I mean, you will. That's also part of the game, I think, of investing, is that you do end up, sometimes your investments go sideways and you dust yourself off and you keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what initially drew you to investing in early stage startups, and how do you identify companies with this massive potential to be disruptors in their industry? Do you have
Yeah.
like a process or?
I mean, one of the things that, so and human design is new to me, but I know a little bit, probably enough just to be like slightly dangerous, like very minimal, right? So I'm a 3/5 projector, splitting projector, and from what I understand, and I didn't know this before, right? But I think how we learn is through like experimentation and all of that, right? And so plus I'm just insanely curious, and that type of investing, like investing in startups, has always been really an area of interest to me, but it always seemed like slightly out of reach, And so that's because when you look at this type of investing, like investing in startups, investing in like venture capital or private equity, it feels like that's kind of like a very much a boys club, very much like go to an Ivy League school and be in the right networks and all of that. And so I was like, well, no, I mean, it can't be that difficult. So let me just figure out for myself. And so I did. So when I had my daughter, while I was on mat leave, I just like started investing in startups and educating myself and getting into networks and having conversations with people that have, done this type of investing. And to date, there's about 13, 14 companies in my portfolio and close to $1 million invested in startups through like check sizes from, I think the smallest was 5,000 all the way to 100,000. You learn by doing. If you're going to invest in startups, you also need to be building a portfolio because there is many of them will fail. That's just the rule of startups. So you need to have a portfolio in which you're, kind of diversifying your risk. But people need to know this. Like if you're going to invest in a startup and you're, a friend, there's something in the startup universe called like a friends and family round, right? So it's like your friend or your family member might go out and start a company, and they might come to you and say, hey, I have this really incredible idea. Do you want to invest in it? And you might say, yes, that sounds amazing. And truly, like I look at tons and tons of pitch decks and they all sound amazing. They're all like, I want to invest in this and this and this and this. So when a friend or a family member comes and says, hey, I have this incredible idea, do you want to invest in it? It would be smart to think like, you can decide I'll invest and I'm just going to write this off as a donation to this person's, dream of building this thing. I'm not expecting a return on that investment. Or you can say, yes, and I'm actually going to build a portfolio of startup investments, and maybe that's around a certain thesis of like you invest in fintech or you invest in consumer or SaaS or whatever. So like you would need to know those things before you part ways with your money. That's helpful, right? And then things that I look for are like, how big is the addressable market? I look at the team. I look at like what's their kind of history in terms of, are they a first time founder or like second time founder? Do I think that this is a growing market? As an example, there's tons of things that are being built in the AI space right now. It's a really hot bubble, just like NFTs were when NFTs were a bubble. So you have to be really, what's the word? Prudent, I would say, of really doing your due diligence around like truly understanding what the where's the word that I'm looking for? Like what's the big edge that this company would have over something else, right? I mostly invest in fintech now. Like that's a big part of my portfolio is investing in fintech products because I have an interest in that area. And so once you start to invest in a specific type of investment class, you also start to see like pattern recognition, right? And you also become more of a strategic investor because you can spot trends and you have the benefit of having invested in different fintech type products and you know what works and what doesn't work. And so I'm actually an advisor to a fintech startup at the moment as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a longer conversation, but that's high level. It can
Yeah,
be.
because there would be so much involved in that, and obviously there's a skill, right, in being able to learn how to really do the due diligence. And yeah, and like you say, I think like anything, it's like learning the skill and the art of um that process and making mistakes and
Yeah.
learning
And
along
like
the
real
way.
estate investment will have different considerations, right? Like if you're investing in real estate, then that's a whole other thing that you would want to understand. So I think this is where um, I'm just a big proponent of like women understanding the landscape, like what are all the different investment types that are available, and And then from that, you'd be able to deduce for yourself, oh, I actually really love real estate for this reason and this particular type of real estate. And I really like investing in startups for this reason. And then you can kind of double down on that. But
Mm.
always keeping in mind the portfolio that you're building. So going back to the stewardship conversation of like, what is the portfolio that you're creating and how do these different asset classes fit in and how is the risk uncorrelated amongst all the different assets? So it's not, I mean, it sounds like a lot and sounds a bit mind bending possibly for some people, but it's like anything when you're learning, it feels, it feels hard, right? My kids are learning swimming, they're learning how to swim. It's uncomfortable and it's hard and it feels like you're never going to get it. And then, you know, next thing you learn, they're floating, right? Or like they're making progress. It's the same thing. It's just I think as adults, it's a bit harder for us to be in the discomfort of not knowing. But it's a very short amount of time that you're in that discomfort, the messiness, the stickiness of not knowing. And then you go through that, you go beyond that, and now you know, and before you know it, you're managing millions. So
Yeah,
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
And so you're the founder of Wealth Bravery, and this is kind of where inside of your world you support women and help educate them about these kinds of decisions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I founded Wealth Bravery because I had a need for a community. I desired to be a part of a community like Wealth Bravery. So there are communities out there when you have, let's say like ultra high net worth, which would be, I mean, it kind of, the definition varies a little bit. Let's say it's like 30 million and above. Below that, there isn't really much. And then there's communities for women and men around like how to get started with investing or how to invest in the stock market or how to invest in real estate or how to invest in startups. So there's these individual silos that you can kind of be a part of if you already know that that's the asset class that you want to kind of double down on. I'm super agnostic. I'm like, bring me the best deal. Like, here's my money, and I want to know what's the best opportunity right now for this money to be deployed. And I don't care what it is for the most part, as long as it's, a solid investment. So Wealth Bravery it's not for the woman who is just getting started in investing. I mean, welcome to join, but it would be the women who get the highest ROI or women who are already investors, already have some kind of investment portfolio. It can be all stocks, and maybe they're looking to diversify more into alternative investments. Alternative investments, and in that category, I would put like investing in startups or investing in private equity or investing in like directly in businesses or private credit or private lending. Those things you're not going to be able to access through a financial advisor because those are not products that are publicly traded products. They're private, right? And so to do well in that kind of investment, you need a network, and you need to understand how to diligence those opportunities. And it's a bit harder to learn. It's a bit more opaque. It's a bit more mysterious. And so the vision for Wealth Bravery was one, a community where I would want to be with other women investors where we can share opportunities and share deal flow, and co-invest on opportunities where it made sense or just invest on our own, but to be able to have access to really great opportunities and to get an investor education and to talk about some of these the more legacy type conversations. Like surprisingly, a lot of people I think are of the mindset of like more is more. Like I just want more money. Like give me more money. And I'm gonna work harder for more money, right? But few people actually ask themselves like, what is the money for? Right? Like what is it for?
Mm.
And how much really? Like what's your magic number? Right? Is it a lot of people talk about a million. I don't think million is I think we need to raise the bar. Like million is not going to work. So, is it Is it 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 million? Is it 30? Is it like, what is your number? Right. And then I think it's really important just to be clear on like, what are you trading for it? So at a certain point, it becomes either a game or a challenge or an adventure, or it becomes something that is not like, nobody needs 10 million. Nobody needs 30 million. Nobody needs even 5, right? Like you don't need it, you want it. And so I think being super clear, especially for, I'm a mom with like 2 young children. I'm very clear that they're my priority. My business runs secondary to my time with my children. My fitness is important. So I'm not willing to trade any of those things for more money.
Yeah.
Right. And I think these value conversations are really important to have. And few people actually sit down and do some introspection around like, when will I feel good? Like, when will I feel like I'm good? You know?
Yeah, and that requires some bold honesty with self as well, right? Not this
Yeah.
external validation or, really
Yes.
working through those elements that maybe it's more ego driven versus what do I actually really need,
Yeah. And it's
And
not,
then there's the game part as well, like you said, like, when it just, when you're in
why
that
not?
space.
If you can, why not? And I'm
Yeah.
I'm all like, yeah, no limits. I mean, of course, yes, all of it, right?
Yeah.
But it's really being able to like hold the duality of more is possible and I'm good. And so
Yeah.
just being kind of honest with ourselves, I think, around like, what's the like, why are you doing it? What's the purpose of it? And what is it costing you, if anything? And if it's like, it doesn't cost me anything, it's all upside. Amazing. Keep doing what you're
Mm.
doing. Right. Like, but if it's costing you your health or your relationship or time with your kids, are those trade-offs that you're willing to make for more? Right. And I just think those are really important conversations. And um, I think anyone who's successful uh, is, well, you have to be, I think, driven to be successful. So at some point, you're so focused on achievement that maybe you don't take a pause to be
Mm.
like, what is it like? What's the end goal here, right?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I loved about you and why I wanted you on as well, because this podcast is all about born to be rich, and richness is more than the money. We love money and we desire to have that, and that can help us feel rich. And there's the richness in our relationships with our children and our time, and rich in our adventures and the fun that we have and our relationships and our health and all those different areas, right? And so I feel like you're such a embodiment of that. And tell us what richness actually really means to you.
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, well, I mean, for me, uh, I'm very close to my family, like very close to my parents, very close to my sister. They're the only people who, like, we left everyone behind essentially, right, when we came here. And so I'm super close. And so richness is, I'm the things that I'm grateful for, and I keep a gratitude journal, and like, without fail, like every single morning, it's like, I'm so grateful for my kids. I'm so grateful for my parents. I'm so grateful that we get to, they live an hour and a half away, that we get to spend lots of quality time together, that they get to be a part of the kids' lives. I'm so grateful that I'm healthy, that they're healthy. Like those are really it, right? I'm so grateful that I had these incredible travel experiences before I was a late mom. Like I had my kids in my 40s. And I'm so grateful that I had those experiences. I traveled extensively before having kids. I had like like just so grateful for those things. The friendships, my relationship with my husband, like these are the things that I think are really my intellect, my ability be to like not give up, my drive, like even like our personal qualities, right? Or I think oftentimes we don't think about them, but we're just so abundant in yeah, like that you can walk and you can think and you can create opportunities for yourself and you can have ideas and um, the money is like the cheapest part of that. You know,
Yeah.
you can take away, would I trade any of those things for more money? No, I wouldn't. And so I think often we in our kind of world, which is very myopic and very kind of consumer centric. And again, I'm like, have all the things. Like it's beautiful to be on a yacht. Like it's fun. It's amazing to travel first class. It's all those things are nice and but they're not. If you're asking me, you know, would you trade all those experiences for like if you had to give up something with your family or with like more time together? Like no, I wouldn't. So again, yes, we can have it all. And I think there's something beautiful about just being aware of how abundant and wealthy and rich and blessed we already are. And then money just gets to be supportive.
Mm.
Now, yeah,
So
I'm
good.
also, yeah, go ahead, Judy.
I love how you also brought in the traits and our ability to think of ideas and be creative, and that's oh there's some real juice in
Oh,
that.
because when you look at like when I look at you know, massively disruptive companies, when you look at people that have really built um big financial wealth, let's say, everything stems from an idea,
Yeah.
right? It was all an idea. Space flight was an idea. Airplanes were an idea. Tesla is an idea. Apple is an idea. They're all ideas. And that is the way to create like that's the way to create like massive legacy wealth is having brilliant ideas and being an excellent, you know, executor and steward of those ideas.
Yeah.
And yes, it requires oftentimes capital. Then you find investors or you bootstrap, and that's the whole entrepreneurial thing as well, right? Is you have an idea and you're selling a service or a product, and it's a way to build wealth.
Mm.
And if you're short of ideas, then you invest, and if you are amazing at your product and service and you have an overflow of cash that comes in, you can invest. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's something that wants to come through. I'm like really curious just to see. Obviously, it's very individual in someone's opinion, but I want to know your perspective on this. So, you know how, that when people are generating money in their business and especially online, showing the flashiness, flying first class, going to this destination, buying this car, all those things, right? Um, Sometimes that can be driven from ego, right? Or
Oh, I
yeah,
think most of the time it's driven from ego.
yeah.
If I'm just honest. I think.
And so I'm like, well, at what point do you, think a bit more strategically about that? Because, right, like first class is amazing. Business class is also great too. It's like, well, what's your take on being really flashy and really extravagant with your spending versus living a little bit more, um, what's the word? I guess more strategically it could be, or it could be just a little bit less feeling as though you just kind of need to spend the money because you've got it. Um,
Yeah.
and because if you think about what you could put, where you could put that money into, right? Into an investment versus a car that's actually depreciating, or versus, a flight that it feels really good in the moment. Like, is it really needed? Like, it's like, what do you like, kind of, how do you live, or what's your take? What's your opinion on that kind of living that lifestyle
Mm.
versus? using that money to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is um I've lost this a little bit. So I mean, first thing I'll say is, like when you introduced me, and I don't actually know if this is like if that word is in my bio. If it is, I probably like I need to check it. But the empire word, right? And so I think when you hear empire, like I think of an empire like the head of like LVMH has an empire, right? Like Jeff Bezos has like that's what I think of as an empire, like billions, right? So here's what I think about your question. It's a really important question. And before I came, like I'd been a millionaire for like 2 decades, like literally, right? Like where I became a millionaire in my 30s, like early 30s, and then it just kind of grew from there. Um, so that's like 20 years. It's not, it's, I would say it's like probably pretty rare for someone to like hold on to. It's one thing to make it, it's another thing to like hold on to it.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a conversation we can have around there as well. But for now, I traveled first class for business all the time because of my work with corporate. So I had experience with it. I knew what it was like. I knew it was a more favorable experience than traveling coach. I ate at Michelin star restaurants because of my work. So I had the experience of what that's like. And now that the corporate world is no longer part of my experience, on flights over 4 hours, I still travel first class. And it is a different experience. So I'm almost of the mind of like, I'm willing to pay for things that make my life easier, that give me a better experience, that impact my quality of life. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. When I look at, so that would be like, the kind of foods that I eat, or having help around the house, or they improve the quality of my life. They give me back my time.
Yep.
All that. I think those are good investments if you can swing them without, if I was in my like heavy wealth building phase, I probably would not do that. I probably would have awareness that I did the math, and I posted on my Facebook page a while ago, and I don't remember exactly the numbers, but in this online space, and certainly in the spaces that I kind of operate in, there's some really high ticket offers, right? Like, and they kind of seem to be the norm. Like a $25,000 or $30,000 investment compounded at, the stock market has returned like 11% over the last 40 years. Over the next decade, like that turns into a million fairly quickly. And so whether that's an investment in a course, which, yes, invest in yourself. And at a certain point, you need to be honest, have some honesty around the investments that you've made in yourself through courses, coaching, mentoring, all the things. What is the return on that investment that has produced? Keeping in mind that compounding takes time. So it's not that I made this investment in January and I expect a return in December, but just have some intellectual honesty with yourself on what is the return on that investment. And then know that now you've put that pressure on yourself in a way, or I would, of I need to earn back this investment, and ideally at a multiple, right? If you had just let's say you could invest 100K a year in your self-development, and let's say you do 50K instead, and that 50K you put into an investment, let's say the stock market, let's say it returns 11%, you can run the math. I'm quite sure that'll be like a million in like 15 years time, 15, 20 years, right? Depends on when you start, right?
Yeah.
So and now you don't longer have that pressure. Now there's some money that's working for you, that's sitting there building your wealth, and then there's a portion of it that's supporting you in, creating more ideas or having more access to like getting better at sales or your marketing or your branding or building your business, right? I think you have to do both.
Yeah.
I think you have to do both. I think this idea of putting all your cash that your business generates back into your business is, again, I don't believe in like nothing is black and white. It depends on the stage of your business and how well it's doing and all the things, right?
And the stage that you're in as well,
And the
because
stage that
that's
you're
kind
in,
of what you're talking
right?
about here. Like if you don't
100%.
have, yeah, if you don't have those investments yet, that could be a really sound move. Of course, when we invest in ourselves, in our growth, in our development, like we can compound that as
Yes.
well, right? Yeah, over time.
So that's and it's just, I think it's important to be honest around like what is the season of your life and your business that you're in?
Yeah.
And is that like, again, everything is an investment, right? Every time you allocate money to something, you're investing it. So then going back to the question around, I'm kind of circling around this, but um, yeah, like I could, I could buy like the Lamborghini and the Bugatti and like I could, but then that's a good chunk of cash that's not like building my wealth. So I think it comes down to your values.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's a values
Again,
piece.
yes, it's very values based, but it's
Yeah.
also, yeah, it's values based. It's like, do you value having fun and looking a certain way and all of that today? Or do you value um, the feeling of knowing that there's this nest egg that's just like compounding and my future self's going to be like super grateful.
Yeah.
Like when I'm 70, I'm that whatever G-Wagon that I bought, in my mid 40s is going to be depreciated. I would much rather have the compounded value of the G-Wagon in my 70s. So, but yeah, so that's what I think about it. I think spending on things that give you like increase your quality of life, that's my personal, I believe in that. I believe in investing in experiences over things. And that's been true for me even like very early on. Like when I was going through, when I was working, I would always buy things on sale, and you can buy beautiful things on sale, right? Because we live in a very like things turn around quickly, right? Seasons change quickly. You can buy classic pieces and they last, right? You can buy
Yeah.
classic quality pieces on sale and they last. There's nothing wrong with that, and nobody knows, right? I never really believed in like flashy labels. So you can wear designer things. I just don't like the labels.
Hmm.
So I think it really is a values thing.
And I love how you spoke about the quality of life piece. So if that's going to help give me my time back, if that's going to help me just feel more vitalized and have more energy, having a smooth, seamless flow of traveling first class or, hiring a private jet or whatever would be the next level, right? Where you just get to be unimpacted by all of the things that happen when
like
you
there's nothing
flight
wrong with,
delays.
yeah, like I mean, Sarah Blakely, like had $1 billion exit with Spanx. I mean, yes, of course, do that because it's coming from a place of like overflow. It's coming from a place of like you've secured a base piece of your wealth pyramid, right? Like,
Mm.
but I think most people are actually financing these things. They wouldn't be able to pay for them outright if they had to. And oftentimes, yes, financings makes more sense economically because the cost of finance is less than the cost of, the return you get on the cash working for you. I think for most people, it's not coming from a place of overflow. For most people, it's coming from like you're stealing from the past, from the future to like have a certain experience in the present.
Mm.
And that is fine, but at some point, you're either going to be on that treadmill of I have to get money keep coming in to be able to finance this lifestyle, or you get to a place where you don't have to do anything you don't want to do with anyone you don't
Yeah.
want to do it with.
Yeah.
So I put more value on that than driving, a certain car or having a certain type of wardrobe or jewelry or whatever. Like I just bought my first designer purse last summer, and I, and so yeah. I'm not saying it's a really, I'm not saying that was the right thing to do. I'm just saying it's a very personal thing, right?
Yeah.
And having like honesty with yourself around, are you doing this because you truly desire it and it truly makes you feel expansive? And because that is a thing, right? Like if you're doing something that truly makes you feel expansive and abundant, and you rent out the penthouse suite at the Four Seasons and wherever, and you're able to sell out your program, like great, do that all day long, right? But if you do that just to post pictures on social media and you don't know how to recover that money through your business, then you're just kind of,
Yeah. Well, that's where the ego is then
yeah,
leading the way versus it
yeah,
being a really authentic, expansive decision, right? And that's yeah, that's the point we want to be at. That's the point.
that's
Um,
yeah.
so amazing. I have so loved this conversation. Usually at the end, what I do is a little bit of a piece around your human design. I don't have your full chart, but just based on what I know about you, being a splenic projector with a 3-5 profile, I mean, it's like your intuitive prowess is like unmatched when you're operating at the high expression of this energy and this frequency. And because you have that splenic hit, it's like, I love that you have that, especially to do with the work that you do, right? With investing and things. And if you're really tapped into that, it's like you're just going to have this innate sense of being able to know what is the right thing to do and in the moment, and that being such a superpower. Um, and of course, just being this amazing guide, amazing mentor, having an ability to be this natural born problem solver and an unstoppable trailblazer in the world, which is obvious with what you're doing and what you're deeply passionate about and what you're bringing forth with wealth bravery as well. And it's like being the 3 line is through learning through experience and having this experimental nature. And then the 5 is the fearless spirit of being able to really bring that through, navigate life with this ability to weave and turn and have the agility to move through whatever obstacles come and probably turn them into opportunities as well. And so when you're actually really embracing the gifts of all of that and trusting in your instincts so deeply, like that can be the biggest challenge for a splenic authority because it comes so quickly. And if you miss it and don't follow it, then we go into, you can go into the head and go into overthinking and doubts and all of that. And so um, that spleen is such the ultimate guide for you. And I really want to acknowledge the courage that I see in you and the truth that you're here to be and who you're here to be in the world. Um, and all of the women that you're here to serve through the work, through wealth bravery and through all of the, just startups and investments and things that you're doing. And I just really deeply honor you. You inspire me. And I am so grateful that you shared your wisdom and shared your experience with us all today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's this has been such a fun conversation. And I think oftentimes people oversimplify, and maybe this is, you can tell me that this is part of like my human design as well, perhaps, but I just see not that I see the complexity in everything, but I don't think things are sound bites. I think there's nuance to things, and I think there's nuance to wealth, and there's nuance to building a business and to being human and all the things. And I'm my whole thing is for women to be able to make to be their own guide when it comes to their money and their wealth, and to trust their own voice and to trust their intuition, and that that intuition that we have for, you know, how to be the best mom to our kids, or how to be the best friend to our friends, or the best partner to our partners, the best CEO to our businesses, like that is available when it comes to investing as well, right? Yes, there's an element of, just as in business, like there's sales for marketing and you know, the systems in the back. Like you have to understand all the pieces that go into building a business, but then you, once you understand those and how those fit together, you just naturally operate from a place of um, aligned wisdom, right? And the same thing is available when it comes to money and investing. And I would just hate for women to be, or men to be intimidated by the language or any of that, because of that's figure outable. And then you get to come to a place where you use your wisdom and you do the thing that's right for you. And it's incredibly empowering and confidence building to know how to manage your own money.
Yeah.
It's a very foundational thing. And I think it makes you a better everything, better mom, better entrepreneur, better partner. You know, like you can hold your own when it comes to money conversations and investing conversations. And uh, so, yeah, I just think it's a really important conversation to be a part of. And I'm honored that you asked me to have it with you. And thank you. It's been super
Thank
fun.
you. I'm also so excited to have you in. I just literally launched Embodied CEO, my brand new mastermind, last night at the back end of the Capacity Masterclass series. And I'm so excited that you're going to be coming in as one of the guest experts to help educate the women inside of the mastermind on this topic. And uh, you know how important it is to me, and how important it is for me to bring in this knowledge and this wisdom to the women in my space. And so yeah, for those listening, come and check out Embodied CEO as well, because you'll get to meet Juliana inside of there as a guest. And also in the show notes below, we're going to have all of Juliana's details, so you can go and connect with her and check out Wealth Bravery and anything other magic that she's got there to give us. We'll have all those links in the show notes. So go and click on those and go and say hi.
Amazing.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much, my love. Look
Thank you.
forward to talking to you real soon.
Thank you. Bye.